Welcome, everyone. My name is Julia Toothaker, and I am the career coach and strategist behind Ride the Tide Collective, the podcast, and the company. This is a career-focused podcast that helps ambitious professionals strategize and take action to control their career in a way that aligns with their personality and values. This season, I am embracing the collective part of my company name, and I've invited various coaches and experts to talk about topics that impact career development and career decisions. And I have to tell you, I feel like I'm saying this on every interview, but this one is extra special because I know my guest today. Simo and I were actually in a mastermind together where we got to know each other. We got to understand each other's businesses. And then I have actually been her client. And so we will definitely get to talk about that. But that's one of the reasons that I wanted to bring her on, because I have personal experience working with her and I've seen just how amazing she is and the care that she has for her clients. And that is what I want to bring to you as well. So a little bit about Simo. Her company is DF Fit, and she is a busy mom who is a personal trainer and coach. So today we are talking about physical health, and we're talking about working out and all of those things, which I know so many of you are like, oh, I know I need to do that. And we're going to talk really practically about it today. So I'm excited for that. But she helps women find their fit and find what truly works for them. She has been a fitness professional for over 6 years. She's certified in various formats, but ultimately she wants to put a bigger focus and has put a bigger focus on working one-on-one with clients and in small groups. And she focuses not just on physical health, but health overall, physical health, spiritual, mental, and emotional. So it's really a complete package when you are working with Simo. Simo, thank you so much for being a guest. I'm so excited to have you on and have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, like very excited. And when I get excited, it's very apparent. So just heads up there.
That's okay. That's okay. I know you and I are both like really high energy together. So
Yeah.
the audience just has to get ready for that.
Yes. Still have high energy with us.
Yes. Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that I know so many people have, and I know even I have had with my clients, even though I do career development, this is still a thing that comes up in terms of just whole life care, which is, what do you think are the biggest challenges for busy professionals when it comes to their physical fitness?
The first thing that always pops into my head is finding the time, especially as a busy professional. And no matter what area you're in, and whether you're an entrepreneur or if you're working for a corporate company, it's just finding that time, especially if you have, standard hours, that 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or something like that. A lot of people just can't really grasp how they can find the time to be able to work out either first thing in the morning or when they get home, when they're exhausted from dealing with clients or dealing with spreadsheets and looking at a computer all day. That is the biggest issue that I hear from most of my clients, and I even had myself trying to find that time. It's definitely a challenge.
Yes, and this is something that I have dealt with for years. And, I worked with you as kind of, so, okay, let me explain that because I feel like context is really important.
Right.
So when I was in the mastermind, obviously I got to know you and I was like, oh, I love your message. I love your vibe. And I was in a place where I knew I needed some type of physical activity, but I didn't know where to start. And you had like this really wonderful program as like a bridge to help people get started. And it was so like, it wasn't this get up at 6 a.m. and work out for 30 minutes every day. I think it was like 3, maybe 4 times a week. And it was like 15 or 20 minutes for each thing. It was not this like really, hard to grasp thing. And it was so good for me at the time. And now, like I revamped my physical fitness this year. And one of the things that I took with me was that idea of like energy and time and not forcing it
Mhm.
to happen. And so
Yes.
now when I set my goals for this year, now granted, we're not that far into the year, so I don't know at the time of this recording. Ask me in like September how it's going, right?
Yes.
But what I was trying to do was not work against myself.
Right.
And so I had it in my head, like, you have to do something 30 minutes a day. You need to move your body 30 minutes a day. And I'm like, that's not realistic.
Mhm.
I can't do that. Like a day like today, I've been on calls and meetings and recordings the entire day. There is no way you're going to get me to do a workout tonight. I'm going to just like
Mhm.
fall over on the couch. So, what are some of your recommendations for people who do have busy schedules? Like, what should they be thinking about?
So it's great that you're saying that, especially with how your day was today. You're busy, you're in meetings all day, and you get home and you just that's the last thing that you want to do. So one of the things that I always tell my clients, well, actually let me back up really quick. So even when someone's interested in me working with me, one of the questions I ask them is what is your goals? And you get, your generic type answers. I want to lose weight, I want to feel better, I want to do this, or I want to do that. And then I'm okay. So the next question is, so now that you've said that, what do you really want to do? And that's when we get a little bit more specific. Well, I'm tired all the time. I have no energy, or I just work so much. I need to figure out how to get some time to be able to work out and focus on me. So we kind of go from there. But the one of the best things that you could do, one of the things that you need to do is be realistic. So not look at what everyone else is doing, not look at all these programs and be like, hey, I see that this person lost X amount of weight. Let me do this. No, you have to be realistic with yourself, your schedule, and your lifestyle. So if that means you start working out 5 minutes at a time, then you start working out 5 minutes at a time because that's realistic for you. If you're telling yourself, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes Monday through Friday, no matter what, you're going to cause burnout. You're going to cause burnout, and then you're not going to enjoy it whatsoever. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're like, what was I? This is too much like work. I don't want to do it. So it
Yes, yes, that is what happens. That is it right there. I never actually thought about it that way, but that's what it is. It becomes more like a job to do, and then
yeah.
it's not fun and
Mhm.
it's just annoying. Plus, there's so many steps to get there.
Right.
You have to like change your clothes. There has to be time. There has to be cool,
Yeah.
and it's, yeah, love
Yeah.
that. I love
Being
that.
realistic that, that 5 minutes, it makes a difference. So many people think that it won't. I wish I could remember the story, but there was a gentleman who was trying to get in his habit. And I love this story. I really need to look it up and get his name. And what he did was he had it in his head, you know what? I'm going to go to Planet Fitness for 4 days out of the week for 5 minutes. He made that mental declaration, if you will, to himself. And that's what he did. He walked in, set a timer, and left in 5 minutes. Maybe he worked out, maybe he didn't. But what he did was he created a habit that worked for him, that didn't feel like it was too much. It didn't discourage him. And within a year, I want to say he lost about 60 pounds. And gradually that time started to increase because he did it based on his schedule, his needs, what was comfortable for him. And I just thought that was so amazing. And the message that I could try my best to convey to my clients: what works for you?
Yes, yes. And I will tell you, that is such a theme for this season on the podcast. What works for you? And when you
Mm.
talk about being realistic, like this is also something that I do in career development. We talk about like, let's have a real conversation about what's going on. So this totally aligns with kind of what I do on the career side. But one other thing I want to share, and I think this goes into the being realistic category, is you're not like a fitness influencer.
Mm.
And I feel like, I don't know if anybody else has felt this way, but I will see somebody doing, a workout on social media or promoting themselves or whatever. And they have this like perfect body, and men,
Mhm.
women, whatever, with the exception of people who do the weight loss stuff. But even then, most of those, it's them getting to that point, right?
Yeah.
And as somebody who, like, I mean, I'm gonna be kind of vulnerable, like, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I am not a small person,
Mhm.
I don't think I'm like massive by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not a small person. And so when I watch somebody doing a workout, half my battle is, are my boobs gonna hurt if I do that workout?
That's me.
Right.
Yes.
And it's such a weird thing to think about, but I will tell you, one of the things that was so comforting to me when I did your program, and I feel like this is an ad for you, but this was so important to me, is I looked at you and I was like, oh, you look more similar to me than these other people. And so I saw that and I was like, you have boobs, you have hips, you're
Mhm.
not a size 2. And I don't mean that in like a negative way. I mean that in
Right,
a
yeah.
I relate way.
Mhm.
And I felt like that was such a turning point for me, because in our work together, I never had this feeling of, I'm never going to look like that. I'm
Mm,
never going to get there, right? Which isn't even my
right.
goal. I'm not trying to be like really skinny or
Mhm.
anything. I don't want that. But it was something in what was happening inside my head,
Yeah.
and just the messages that we've been given throughout, our lives and all that. I'm an elder millennial, so, we went through
Mhm.
all the fitness, everything,
Right.
and dieting crazes and all of that. And then being also a taller woman, my weight my weight and my size tend to be a topic of conversation,
Mhm.
and so there's always this like insecurity with that. And so that's one of the things I really appreciate about working with you, is I never felt insecure and I never felt like you were trying to push me in a certain way. And so I think understanding, like, who are you following from a fitness perspective, and are they giving you the information that is helpful for you versus somebody who's trying to sell you a pipe dream.
Right. Yes, I agree 100%. And that was initially in my journey, my struggle, just chasing the next best program, chasing the next best, um, whoever was doing this or that to lose weight. And I just got to a point where I know my body structure, I know my medical conditions. It really wasn't about weight for me. I just let the world make me feel that way. And I
Mhm.
just got to a point, you know what? I That's not what I want. I don't care about the weight. I want to feel good. I want to be strong. I want to be able to run a 5K and not feel like I'm going to have an asthma attack and and that was just it. I just wanted to be strong, Sure, I wanted to lose weight, but I could care less if I did or if I didn't. As long
Right.
as I felt good and as long as my thought process was focused on not only feeling good about myself but the internal part of it as well. The emotional mess that could come with it when you get too much in your head,
Mhm.
and the mental struggles that come with it, and just overall having energy when I wake up, not being tired. When 3 o'clock hits, I'm not ready to tank, all of that stuff. I'm like, I don't want to be at my desk, like, you know,
Right. Right.
I want to be good. And I just want to be happy, look in the mirror and be like, I look good no matter what
Yes. Yes. And, okay, the 3 o'clock slump, right? So
Mm,
I want to talk about this in connection with career, because I think there there's so much to be said about having a physical outlet,
yeah.
um obviously in general, but also if you are somebody who's dealing with high stress or a high
Mhm.
pressure job, or something where there needs to be some type of like release, of
Mhm.
endorphins, or whatever's building up in your body, kind of harkening back to what you said in the beginning, figuring out the timing and what works for you, I think that's so key. Like, we have a bike here, and we got a bike with a tray so that I could put the
Mm,
laptop.
nice.
on it. And so I ride the bike and either take a call, not like a client call, like a friend
Mhm.
call, somebody that knows me. Or I work on something, do notes or social media, something that doesn't require, me to be at the big
Mhm.
computer and whatever. And again, like that's such a game changer because I'm now thinking this is my natural cadence. And how do I
Mhm.
make the fitness work into that versus going, this is the fitness thing I want to do 5 days a week. How do I change my whole schedule to
Yes.
fit that?
Mhm. That's really good because from being realistic and how you're describing about how you have a bike and that you have a tray for it, to take calls, even their friend calls and stuff, that kind of leads into the next thing that I tell my clients too is to be flexible. So when you are being flexible with your schedule, your space, wherever you're working and stuff like that, that could literally mean adding a bike to somewhere in your room that works for you, or
Mhm.
even, those big exercise balls, put it at your desk and you're sitting at it. You're forced to have a certain posture, engage your core, sitting up straight. And it gets so much into it. Like if you're someone who does that, you're so much in that habit that you're doing it without your ball and you don't even realize it.
Right.
So 8 hours of engaging your core, it makes a huge difference. And then time wise, like if you're having a meeting and you have about 10-20 minutes before your next meeting, take five minutes to do a quick little stretch, lean on your desk, stretch your arms, be flexible with your space, with your time, and just really think about little pockets that you can do things in because it makes a world
Mhm.
of a difference. And it drives that cognitive function that people lack sometimes when they're just so engaged in these meetings back to back and then thinking at the end of the day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The be flexible piece. I feel like, especially my high achievers that are listening to
Mm,
this, I think
yes.
flexibility can be hard sometimes because we get this idea of a goal in our head. And so everything has to align for
Right.
that to happen, or,
Mhm.
we've completely failed, we haven't met the goal, we haven't done all of that. And I know for me, I've had to work, I still do it. It's like one of the worst things that I still do as a high achiever, but I've had to work to really tell myself, you are not a failure if you miss a workout this week.
That's right. Right. Exactly. That's so true. And we have that ingrained in our mind. Like, never miss a Monday. You can't do this. You can't do that. And that's not true. You adjust as you need to adjust because if you can continue to have that mentality, because I'm not gonna lie, I still struggle with it sometimes. But
Yeah.
you continue to have that mentality, then you get back to that space where you feel like it's work. And you feel
Yes.
like you're not good enough because I can't even get this right when that's not the case.
Yes.
Not the case at all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you don't want to feel that pressure.
Right.
That was my thing coming into this year is I was like, I want to feel good when I work out. I don't want
Mhm.
to feel like I'm, berating myself,
Right.
or, that kind of, pointing somebody's pointing a
Mhm.
finger at me, telling me you have to do this or else, and I feel like
Yes.
that's how I've approached myself internally,
Mhm.
without really knowing it.
Mhm.
And oh man, trying to shift that internal talk around fitness is so hard.
It really is. And there's one thing that so many of us don't realize what it does. So, we have that moment of berating ourselves and just, like you said, pointing that finger and stuff. But if we shift it and we know it's not one of those things where, we are just making a choice to be lazy or not do something, and not because we're tired, but just because we just don't want to do it. But if we're in a space where, like, I had this going on during my day, it's just too much. My brain feels tired. Like I really need to rest. We're taking care of ourselves. We're putting that focus still on our physical health because we're not pushing
Mhm.
ourselves more than we should, and we should be proud of that because a lot of people cannot do that. They cannot do that. They get in that same mode of berating themselves, but they take it to another level where they're just like, you know what, I'm going to keep pounding myself and beating myself down when
Yeah.
we're not realizing we're making the conscious decision to make things worse for ourselves physically. But if
Yeah.
we're like, you know what, it's okay for me to rest today because I did a lot and stuff, and I'll just pick back up tomorrow. And
Right.
that means, you know what? I'm taking care of myself. I'm putting myself
Yes.
first. I'm doing what I need for my body so that my body can be at its optimal um, range of motion, range of thought process, all of that stuff for the next day. And we don't look
Yes.
at it that way. We just
Oh,
know
that's
we're
so
not working
good.
out, so we're not taking care of ourselves. But no,
Yeah.
I'm taking time for myself today. I'm resting. I'm recuperating and rejuvenating. So I'm
Mhm.
good tomorrow. High five to me.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, I feel like that is like the clip. That is that is such a big takeaway from this discussion because it's so funny. This aligns so much with what I'm going through right now. So I'm like, yeah,
Good.
because
Yes.
I've had to really again like shift that internal talk. And it actually just happened last week because everybody got sick in
Oh
our
God.
family. I got it. I didn't get it as bad as everyone, but I had a planned workout and I
Mhm.
sat there and I was like, okay, could I work out? Could I go do the bike? At the very least, could I sit on the bike and do the bike? And I was like, probably. But I'm also just not feeling good.
Mhm.
And is it worth it? You know, like, is it worth it to completely drain my energy today when I'm not feeling good? Husband's not feeling good. Tiny human's not feeling good. Like, is that the thing that's going to be helpful in the grand scheme of what's going on for the
Mhm.
day? And I was like, no.
Yes.
So I was like, you know what? We're not going to work out today. Um, if I can make it happen on the weekend, I will, but I'm not going to know till we get there. And I'm not
Mhm.
going to pressure myself. If I miss
Yeah.
a day, I miss a day.
Right.
And I have to just be okay with that. But the amount of times that I had to recite that to myself
Yes.
to
Yeah.
believe it.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I have a really specific question. And we did not talk about this beforehand, but this is so if you don't know, don't feel like you have to talk on it.
Okay.
But this is something that I've just seen a lot more information out there. And this is specifically for women.
Mhm.
One of the things that I've seen is working out in alignment with your cycle.
Mhm.
And so I heard about this a couple months back. And so I was becoming like much more aware of my energy at different parts of my cycle. And I've noticed like even working out, like the week before and the week of, I am an absolute disaster. Like my energy
Mhm.
is all over the place and all of that. But then, like, right after it's done, I'm
Mhm.
like, energy for days and it's like this crazy like increase and I'm like let's go do all the things like let's go. Is that like something that you've encountered with clients or like is there truth to that? I mean, I've seen a few videos on it and
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." Like, do you have any like thoughts on that?
So, I don't know a lot about it, but I've heard about it as well too. And as of right now, I don't have to worry about that anymore. So, high five. But
Lucky.
um, one of my nieces, she's actually been talking about it a lot. She's also a fitness professional, and she's been talking about how aligning your workouts with your period, your menstrual cycle, and stuff can be a benefit. Because if you think about it, you know what our menstrual cycle is and what we lose during that time, it's kind of hard to recuperate that during that time. So your energy levels dropping can make a huge difference versus when you're, coming off of it and stuff. So I wish I had more details and information on it, but yeah, I definitely do think it's worth investigating and looking into because there is definitely, especially for women, when it comes to our hormones and
Mhm.
how exercise and the type of exercise you're doing affects it, that is definitely something worth looking into for any woman, especially if you're one who has a very big struggle with menstrual cycles,
Right,
with pain and the inconsistencies and stuff. There's, I'm sure, tons of information regarding it.
right,
Tons. I'm
right.
gonna have to
Okay.
get her information because I want to say she even did a master class on it.
Oh,
I'll have to
nice.
get that
Okay.
information and share it.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Cause I think like, and this is really more for people that didn't know that because I
Yeah.
didn't know. And so if that's something that interests you, like definitely go look that up because it was
Mhm.
very eye-opening once I started being more aware
Yes.
of all of that. The other thing I want to talk about too is age,
Mm.
because you and I are more in our midlife.
Yeah.
And I know one of my barriers working out, especially in my 30s, has
Mhm.
been I'm not 20
Right.
anymore.
Mhm.
And even more so than that, I was a dancer, like, growing up into high school and into some of college. So my ability back then totally different than what I could do in my 30s. And so when we're talking about like being realistic and being flexible, it's like
Mhm.
recognizing that if you are more in your midlife, you're not 20 anymore and your
Yes.
workouts are going to look different, and
Mhm.
your energy and all of that is going to look different. Do you have any like tips, maybe for women who are more in the mid age and you're just like, I don't
Yeah.
have the energy to do any of this?
Yes. So that's another great way to segue into the next thing that I tell my clients, and that's be committed. And you really have to, especially the older that you get, and it's not just, I don't want people to misunderstand when I say the older that you get, because we're leveling up. That's what I call it. We're
Mm-hmm.
leveling up, and it's not a bad thing. However, we know that things change, especially for women. Men are lucky; they don't have to go through the stuff that we do. But for women, you're getting older. You go through perimenopause, and then you get into full blown menopause, which changes everything in your body, how your bone mass is structured, your metabolism, certain foods and what they do to your belly and all that stuff. So you really have to pay attention to the changes that are going on in your body, how certain foods make you feel and if it changes, and how your
Mm-hmm.
body feels when you're doing any type of activity, so you know where you need to put your focus. Like for me, I'm currently in menopause because I had a total hysterectomy and ovary removal in
Mm-hmm.
2019. And my mom, she has osteoporosis, so that's something else that links to menopause because of the lack of your bone health being continuing to be strong, lack of estrogen and all that stuff. So
Right.
I have to be mindful with strength training, but strength training is key as we get older to fight that, to combat that,
Mhm.
when it comes to our muscles and things getting weak. So I myself have to be mindful if something's not feeling right when I'm moving a certain way in a squat or anything like that, you know, changes to how I tolerate different types of food. And if you're not committed to paying attention to those things, or if you're disregarding it like you're still in your 20s, then we have a problem. And I'm guilty of
Yes.
that. So you really have to. And if you're, whether you're doing your journey on your own or if you're trying to work with someone, you have to make sure that if you're on your own, you're looking specifically into the things that are specific for you and what you're
Mhm.
needing. And I highly recommend, making sure you're doing your blood work and stuff and looking for deficiencies, because that's going to help drive whatever it is that you need to work on. And then if you work with a professional, a personal trainer or a fitness coach or something, make sure they're knowledgeable in those things, because if they're not, then they're just going to give you what they give clients who are probably high metabolism, doing this and doing that. It's not going to work for you. So
Mhm.
be committed to knowing your body, understanding it, how it functions, how it changes. Be committed to looking into the things that are going to help you. Be committed to taking the time to find the person that's right for you if you're going to work with them. Be committed to
Yes.
making sure your diet is good. And when I say diet, I'm not talking about going on a diet. I'm talking about your diet, period.
Yeah.
What makes you have energy? What doesn't? If you eat cheese, do you get tired 30 minutes later? That type of thing. So
Right.
be aware completely how you
Right.
feel all the way around.
Right. Okay. I want to add to that because I feel like this, I think certain people talk about this, but when you're in like high stress and
Mm,
burnout mode, your body, because I went through this, so personal experience, your body functions so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the period of time that I was like that, I was working out and I was gaining weight still. I was like, my stomach felt horrible all the time. And I thought that that's just how it was. I thought that's how my
Mm-hmm.
body was until I got out of it, till I got out of the high stress situation.
Mm-hmm.
And my body was essentially able to like get back into like a normal regulation and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to see results and I started to see a different impact because that high stress just, it doesn't, I don't know all the science behind it, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that it impacts your body so much that you could do all the things and never feel good because your mind and your body is still trying to work itself through this other
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so I feel like for people who maybe are in that situation where you're like, I'm working, I'm doing the things, I'm committed, I'm doing all of this and I'm not seeing the results, like kind of be realistic and look
Right.
around at what's going on in your life. And is that
Mm-hmm.
also impacting? I don't know if you have any information on that, but that was my personal experience.
Yeah. So we put ourselves in these like high stressful situations. Our body goes into fight or flight mode. And the thing with going into fight or flight mode, we don't realize that, if we are already carrying a lot of fat in our bellies or anywhere in our bodies, visceral fat, subcutaneous fat, whatever you want to call it, um, we go in that fight or flight mode and our body wants to hold on to it. Our body wants to hold on to it because there's nothing else for it to use to keep our energy to accommodate that fight or flight mode. And a lot of people don't realize that. I didn't know that. So
Wow.
yes, so you get in some people they're the direct opposite. For whatever reason, they're in that fight or flight mode and they drop the weight. But in my case,
Right.
it doesn't matter if I'm eating healthy, it doesn't matter if I'm not eating. Whatever I have inside of me, my body is clinging to. And then
Mhm.
whatever I am putting in, it just kind of just goes on top of it, goes on top of it, and raises
Wow.
your cortisone levels. I mean, it is insane. And we don't realize how much it affects us. So it goes back to that commitment of understanding and paying attention to what your body's doing. Because I mean, even if you're the person who doesn't retain all that stuff and you just drop it like a bad habit, it just comes off easily. You're still you're getting depleted and you don't even realize it. You're
Right.
going until your body just wants to crash. And
Right.
then to yours, like with your stomach being upset and not feeling good and stuff, that could have been the case for you. There's more information that relates into it. That portion I know only because of what I experienced.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that fight or flight mode, it doesn't
Yeah.
help very much. It makes it very hard for any type of digestion, how you absorb food, how you break it down. It affects so much, and I don't think people realize that it's just like a little kinetic chain, like everything
Mm.
from the moment you absorb it and how you're feeling emotionally and how your insides are functioning and what you're doing. It can be a very big hassle.
Yes. Okay. I love this conversation because I think, even though like we don't have all the answers to everything, but
Right.
I think the level of awareness for
Mm-hmm.
people, and I know my audience is made up of a lot of high achievers, high performers who are working in jobs that are so demanding. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope that part of their takeaway from this is just to evaluate their current situation if they're not already in a routine. Obviously, if you're in a routine and it works for you, then keep doing that
Right.
thing. But if you're not and you want to do that, or you've tried so many different things, I hope that this brings a level of awareness to
Mm-hmm.
you, because I feel like for me, that's been the hardest thing, is just not knowing what has held me back,
Yeah.
right? And not taking enough time to really evaluate seasonally
Mm.
what my
Yeah.
schedule looks like and what the true barriers are.
Yes.
And a friend of mine, we're actually like accountability partners right now for health stuff because we both realized that that's what we needed to be successful.
Yes, good.
And so we meet once a week. And one of our conversations, if we miss one of our goals, right, is what was the barrier? Like,
Yes.
what was the barrier? What was the thing? And that's a question that I'm really asking right now in this season is if I'm not hitting a goal, if I'm not doing what I want to do or what I say I'm doing, what is the barrier? And I think it's okay to say, I was tired, like we were talking about earlier. I was tired and I just didn't have it in me. But you know what? The next day I went and did this.
Yes, that's
And being okay
good.
with that.
You know, there is this book that I started reading this year. I'm like on this thing where I'm going to read a book every month. And it's Atomic Habits by James Clear. And OMG, the first chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, like just looking at the different ways he breaks these things down, cutting habits off at its source and paying attention to actions that trigger these habits or agreeing with certain actions that influence what our identity is when it's truly not us. And all these things play such a part in it. You know, when you're trying to be realistic with your goals, being flexible, being committed, what habits have I created for myself that are keeping me from doing all these things? And how can I cut it off at the source? How can I start from scratch, whether it's little, big or small, habit stack, and all of that stuff? I mean, if there is any listeners out there who have not read this book, get it. Read it, get it. It will rock your world. I just cannot believe how much I'm like, oh, it's on and cracking now.
I will put a link for that book in the blog post for this episode so that everybody has access to that. And okay, so for this season, we have actions for each episode. And if you've been listening, Simo has been so great in breaking all of these actions down. I don't think we need to necessarily go into detail with them anymore, but just to break it back down again, be realistic, be flexible, and be committed. But even the commitment one, remember it's going hand in hand with being flexible.
Yes.
So don't overcommit yourself.
Oh my gosh, yes, exactly. Yes, that's so good. That's so good. Keep that sentence in your mind.
Okay, now Simo, I know that you are actually relaunching some stuff. I think by the time this episode comes out, you're going to be like relaunched and all of that. And do you have a freebie or anything that you want to share with the audience?
So as of right now, I was going to create something. However, with the relaunch, I want to make sure that it lines up with it. So I'm going to hold off on that, but I do want to create something that's specific for your listeners. So as soon as I have that together, I will send it directly to you and I will not post it for anybody else. It'll be specific for them. And then, you know, we'll give it some time and then I'll give it to the general public. But yeah,
Oh my
something's
gosh,
definitely.
that's so amazing. Okay, so I will make sure that that initially goes out on the email list. So if that's something that you want, like definitely get onto the email list. And then probably by the time this airs, we'll have the links and everything for it. So we'll make sure to put that in the blog post. If people want to connect with you or follow you on social media, where can they find you?
So they can find me on Instagram at Simo_DFFit. And then I also have my Facebook page, which is also Simo DFFit. You'll be able to find it easily if you plug it into the search bar. And let's see, that's about it. Oh, I have a TikTok as well, which is also Simo_DFFit. I have a good time on there. You're more
Nice.
than welcome to go follow and see all my shenanigans. It's awesome. But
That's
yeah,
so great.
yep, it's
That's
all there.
awesome.
On my Instagram, if you click in my bio, you'll be able to access my link tree and has some more stuff on there that you're more than welcome to take a look at.
Perfect. And I will make sure to put all of those links into the blog post for this episode. Simo, this was so great. I feel like this was such to go along with your actions. It was such a realistic conversation to have around the topic of fitness. And I so appreciate your approach and your support of women as well, and men, as we go into figuring out what fitness looks like for us. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.